Everybody, welcome to another DevCast here on the Game Wisdom channel. I am Josh Placer, and we have another great one for you this afternoon. We're going to be talking to the developer of the upcoming game Alder's Blood. This is a tactical kind of stealth turn-based strategy kind of game. They are currently on Kickstarter at the time of this live stream for it. They just hit over the 10K amount of their $12,000 goal, and we'll be talking to the developer about it as well as the design of the game. So please welcome to the podcast from Shockwork Games, Michael.
Hello everybody.
Hey Michael.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. How are you doing tonight?
Quite nice. As you said, we just breached through 10,000 on the Kickstarter. Looks very good, very promising. Kick track, is showing the trend to 18, so we should reach our stretch goal, which is an expansion. So all nice and good.
Nice, and definitely congratulations about that. I know. Let me just move you up here. There we go. I know when you contacted me about the game, it was about 2 weeks ago, or a little bit less than that, regarding getting it. But yeah, it's good to hear that you guys are on track. And for people watching us live right now, you have 13 days as of this live stream if you want to get any pledges in for it. But we've certainly got a lot to talk about. Michael made the first-timer mistake of saying that he's fine going long on these casts. So this may prove to be disastrous for him. We shall see how things go.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
But since this is your first time on the cast, could you talk a little bit about kind of your background in the game industry? And for people watching, what is Alder's Blood?
All right. So me and my team are working together for like 3 years or maybe a little bit longer together. Before working on Alder's Blood, we were doing some mobile games, which we didn't like. This is something to learn Unity engine, because we are working in Unity, and try to get into game dev, but we decided that we need to make a proper big PC game, and that's how we started working on Alder's Blood. Okay. So that's my background. I'm an artist, by the way, and project manager, writer. I wear a lot of hats, in this project, but it's all good. I really enjoy what I'm doing. Seriously, really enjoy what I'm doing. Sometimes it's exhausting, but it's very, very rewarding. So what's Alder's Blood, right? We call it the tactical stealth game. It's a turn-based, hex-based game set in this dark Victorian/Western fantasy setting, where you control a group of hunters trying to hunt some beasts, werewolf, vampires, things like that, some other creepy stuff as well, on a quest to kill a god. That's I think the whole sentence, to describe the game.
Great. And so you said that you've been working on Alder's Blood for 3 years?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's pretty much how it is. It's hard to count the time exactly, because when we are starting on the game, we're still finishing some of the mobile projects that we're still working on. So there were some like pauses, in the development for different reasons. But it's, I think, plus minus 3 years.
Okay. And before I kind of delve more into talking about Alder's Blood itself, one question I always like to ask when we have international guests on. Now, so I said at the start that you guys are based out of Poland. I guess
yes.
For people watching us right now, and again, I think my audience tends to be more skewed towards the United States, what is kind of like the game dev scene in Poland right now?
Right now it's very active. I don't know when exactly this happened, because it wasn't like the case all the time. But right now, I think Poland is one of the countries that has like the most game dev companies per, citizen, right? Yeah, we do a lot of these games recently. I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. We have a lot of talented people who know what to do. There's a lot of good ideas. Just look at 11-bit Studio, right? CD Projekt Red is like everybody knows about them, right? But there are also a lot of smaller teams that make a lot of good stuff from time to time, and just find out that they are from Poland. Like the devs are that made Moonlighter. They're also from Poland. They knew that. So yeah, we make a lot of these games. Situation, I think, is pretty good. There was a boom like a few years ago when 11-bit Studio published Frostpunk. There was a huge boom in the industry that we should invest, a lot of resources into this part of the industry. But then the dust settled, everything kind of.
And as you said,
you know how it is. There is this usually this gold rush, and then everybody comes to their senses.
And as you said, with CD Projekt Red, like they were kind of like the one that, that kind of like blew things up, especially with The Witcher. And yet we are, and it is kind of surprising, again, like especially for like my audience, that we're seeing more and more developers come out of Poland, especially come out of the international scene. I know one of my current favorite games, Dead Cells. I think the developers they're French, who made that one. I may be confused. And yeah, it's amazing to see again, like where like the game industry is like taking root around the world, especially again with the independent developers doing it.
I think that right now, game dev, especially the indie devs, they know that they cannot just focus on their home country. This won't give them enough visibility, enough money to continue doing this, and so right now everybody's trying to reach the worldwide audience, especially with Switch, for indie devs. This is like the main platform right now.
Yep. And we as you were just saying regarding like the indie gold rush in Poland, there was kind of the Nintendo Switch gold rush that took place last year.
Yeah, everybody is crazy about Switch, and I'm in this rush as well. I'm a huge fan of gaming on Switch, and Alder's Blood will be available on Switch on the launch. We'll see about other consoles. This is a little bit more tricky with PS4 and Xbox One, but with Switch, we already started porting this, and it looks really good so far.
Yep. And as a quick word to the people watching us live right now, if you have any questions for Michael regarding Alder's Blood, tactical stealth design, or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments there or in the chat, and we will get to them. But let me see here. Yeah, so Zern is saying, again, like when it comes to the independent scene, by the fact that developers are able to basically design games anywhere and everywhere in the world, it's kind of like we do still see, I think, a few indie games that are kind of like region specific or they're tailored to their specific demographics, but it has become a lot more international, especially over this decade.
Yeah. I think the best example is actually Witcher, that we just discussed before. Everybody got very excited about CD Projekt Red, but that was their third game, right? And the first one, the first Witcher, was, I think, maybe not focused entirely on Poland, but the region. So like Poland, Czech Republic, Russia. This is the area where we read the books, that the game is based on, and it's very, very popular, in this region. But then, that they found out that they can do a little bit more. That the second Witcher was aimed for an international audience. It wasn't as good as the third one, but still, it was better. They tried to advertise this with better graphics, and then the third one, boom, right? The best success in the Polish game dev so far, I guess.
And Oscar. Yeah, we're talking about like the Switch as a gold rush, as Nintendo has certainly, courted like the big names. Again, we saw Binding of Isaac get on, which was kind of hilarious when I talked with Edmund about it, because it was originally banned from Nintendo Wii at the time. And that's always been like the tough thing about these gold rush periods, is that by the time we actually hear about it, it's pretty much over because everyone's gone that way. And it's hard to say if the Switch is still really considered a gold rush for independent developers, because again, everyone has gone to or everyone is trying to get on that platform.
Well, it's not as easy as it was,
Mm-hmm.
when the Switch launched. Then basically anything you put there would sell nicely. But still, even now, if you have a good game,
Mm-hmm.
because there is always this uh, a game and a good game. Right? It's not the same. But if you have something truly like nice, unique, Nintendo will find this out and they will promote this. eShop right now is probably the best thing, to promote your game. So if you find yourself, uh, in a situation when Nintendo really like your stuff that you have, then basically you have guaranteed success. Like look at Wargroove, for example. It was heavily advertised by Nintendo and it sold very, very well. Very well. And there are some other examples. I would have to dig a little bit deeper, but the way the eShop is constructed, I think, is very good for indie developers and for the customer. Right now for me, it's the best shop design out there, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and we're certainly seeing more discussions about game stores going on right now. I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on the whole Epic Games. I'm not sure what we're going to describe that one as in the coming months there.
People have concerns, and I think that they are justified. It's very aggressive,
Yeah.
like strategy, and I don't know where it will lead us in the way. We'll see, right? We'll see what will happen, but I can understand, all of the sides. I think that there's too much emotions in it, too much emotions. These are just games, and it's game developers saying you that. So these are just games. It's not a cure for the cancer. Chill.
But I think with that, let's talk a little bit more about Alder's Blood. We'll then, after we talk more about the design, we'll then talk about the Kickstarter, and then we'll kind of see where the conversation takes us at that point.
Okay.
But as you said earlier, it is a tactical stealth kind of design. So I guess in terms of like the basic gameplay, I was looking at some of the screenshots you have on the Kickstarter page, and it does have like that kind of, I'm not sure I would say like XCOM look to it, but it has again like that tactical strategy, almost like that, like a Disgaea or Tactics Ogre kind of appeal to it. So in terms of like the general gameplay, what are you doing in Alder's Blood?
What are you doing? You have different objectives, and very, very rarely they are kill everything on the map. You need to go on the mission, and it's usually pick something up, activate something. I don't want to spoil too much, but like in general terms, this is what you need to do. And you won't be rewarded by killing monsters, and that's how this stealth works, right? If you are not rewarded by killing stuff, you don't get any loot or any special experience, and the monsters hit hard, and they do hit hard, then you try to find a way to sneak past them, or try to only kill the ones that are really in the way, and you cannot find a mean to just run around them. So that's one of the main things that pushes this. The objectives are not based on killing everything on the map.
Okay.
But we had to go a little bit deeper. There are other stuff, and I don't know. Should I just continue talking about this, or do you want to ask some questions?
Oh yeah, we can certainly see where it goes in terms of talking about this. Again, we can spend a very long time talking design. So.
Okay, so maybe I can tell you like the history of this, because there's quite a bit of history how this came into being.
Sure.
So we are still doing mobile games at that time, and we started playing some games that were very RNG heavy, Darkest Dungeon and XCOM.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So and we had this conversation. Why am I missing 80%? Shot, right?
We had that conversation a lot this past week too, as I've been playing XCOM 2 on stream.
Yeah. So you know the feeling, right? And we started talking internally. What would happen if we do a game where you don't have this at all, right? There's no two-hit chance. You have guys that are trained to do what they need to do, that are trained with their weapons, with their tools. So, well, in these short distances, that for any person that ever had a gun in their hand, the distances between characters in games like that are very short, and this is like basically guaranteed hit for anybody that can shoot. So we said, okay, no RNG, right? In two-hit chance, if you hit, I don't know, 10 damage, you get 10 damage, right? And that was one of the main principles when designing Alder's Blood. Then came other stuff, right? This was just like a conversation, right? It was still before, okay, let's make a game. But when we decided to make a game, I was still stick to this design decision and started building something around this. And I always wanted to do something with like this vampire hunters, werewolf hunters characters, and decided that maybe this is a good opportunity, because usually you get like fantasy tactical games or sci-fi, right? Something modern, but I wanted to do something different. And it started to basically like come together just by itself, right? If you have hunters, then on a hunt, the smell is a very important thing, right? You need to position yourself in a good way to the wind, right? So the animals won't smell you. So we knew from the very beginning that we want a smelling mechanic, and this is one of the basic stuff in Alder's Blood. We have wind that can change direction, and every hunter produces smell. It's represented with like a flag, of particles. Mm-hmm. And if the character, the enemy, touches this, they will investigate this source of the smell in their turn. So they can see you, they can smell you, they can hear you, right? Some weapons like guns are loud, and there's a distance of this sound, and this can also expose you, right? So they shoot far, they deal high damage, but they are loud, so they can lure monsters towards you. And this was the basic stuff, right? We want to have a game with no RNG, and we want to have all of these senses, and then it started evolving.
Okay, very interesting. We could probably spend like 40 minutes alone just talking about the whole two-hit chance part about the game.
Yeah. The only like version of this random damage I was taking into consideration was how much damage you will deal. But there's like a minimal and maximal damage. Not if you will hit at all, but how much damage you will deal. But I don't think there is a need for that right now. Maybe we'll add some like a special weapons that have something like that, and the range of this damage could be kind of high. But right now we don't plan to change anything.
Okay.
In this.
All right. And this is probably a good time to ask Oscar's question. Where was the inspiration, like in terms of like the story or the theme? Like you already mentioned the gameplay kind of being inspired by XCOM minus RNG there. But in terms of like the story and lore, like where did that come from?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I think this is something that was like deeply rooted somewhere. I think Bloodborne kinda like awakened this, because that's pretty much the only game that has a setting like that. And at the very beginning, a lot of people were saying that this looks like Bloodborne, which was very touching for me. I'm a huge fan of Bloodborne.
Oh yes.
But to be honest, this is something that I was very interested since I was a kid. I was always drawing stuff with a pencil, with a pen, whatever, right? And Vampire Hunters was something that was very often a topic of my drawings. So this is like going back to roots, I guess. Also. But then it evolved, we had some ideas that we discussed with Alex, our illustrator, that sits next to me playing Monster Hunter right now. And we just went with it. We like horror, we like creepy stuff, so we knew that the monsters won't be just cutesy chibi stuff, but they need to be creepy, they need to be scary, we need to have some other stuff like this god, this is kind of strong story point. But it was a process, it's not that everything clicks the first day you start thinking about this. Gameplay influences story influences gameplay, and it goes back and forth.
And as you were talking, I'm just like looking at the images and the screenshots on the Kickstarter page, and yeah, the art has a very like unique look to it. As you said earlier, you're the artist on the game, so I guess in terms of the aesthetic, like that kind of like hand drawn, gothic look to it. Like, did you settle on that like very early on in the game, or did that kind of style develop as you started making the game?
There's another longer story to that. So I created the first very short like game design. I would say pitch. It's not even like it wasn't the proper game design document. It couldn't be. It was just the beginning. I knew that I want to have these characters in cloaks, and I knew that we will draw this, right? Because me and Alex is also an artist on this project. We have a lot of experience drawing, classic stuff, right? We are not 3D artists, so this is like this. We see this as our advantage, and we wanted to use it, but we had some problems trying to get the art style right. Now this is actually the second iteration of what you see for Alder's Blood graphics right now. We had the first shot with that, and if you go to our page, there is a video. Launch day stream when we show some of these very early concepts, early graphics, but it didn't look very good. If you zoom in, the characters are more detailed than they are now. We used a different animation technique. It's like skeletal animation.
Okay.
You basically took a 2D image, changes to a mesh, and then you can morph it a little bit. It looks good as long as you don't have any more complicated movement on the character. So it's kind of stiff,
Okay.
but the details are there. We tried to work something with it, but we had a problem with readability, of the map. And well, this is a tactical game. This is very important, right? You need to know where the characters are, where you need to click. And at some point, we just decided, okay, this is not gonna work, right? The characters are too detailed. The everything is too detailed, and if you zoom out, and you need to zoom out in the tactical game, right?
Yeah.
You cannot see too much. And at some point, okay, we are doing a huge redesign of the graphics. That everything stayed the same, but we switched to stop motion graphics. So all of the animations are drawn frame by frame, right? It's like old school type of animation. But this allows us to create different, more fluid moves, that are more anatomically possible. And this is what you see right now. It was also a process, at the very beginning, our fans that were with us, from the beginning were saying, okay, I'm not sure if this is the right direction. I like the older graphics better. But this was a process, we needed time to polish everything, to prepare all of the terrain elements, ground textures, additional stuff. And right now I can say that it was a good decision, that it looks way better than it used to, and I'm happy with it. Of course it could be better, but well, we'll be there sometime, right? We'll reach this super giant level of graphics at some point.
Yeah, and like that's one like the challenging parts about making kind of strategy games, that the UI really has to be on point when you're trying to develop it. It was one of the things about when I played XCOM 2 that a lot of the improvements that were added in War of the Chosen, or the ones I really liked, were on the UI side, like being able to see, exactly where I'm standing and whether or not I can see an enemy or whether or not I can flank that enemy. And like it's like these kinds of things that when we talk about it, it's very like minuscule little details. But when you're playing a tactical strategy game, and those little details, I mean, the difference between I can hit this enemy, or no, I can. Now I'm just going to just like walk up to me and smack me and kill my guy. It can get very frustrating.
Yeah, like for us, the last 2 months were about this kind of stuff. Get the basically user experience right, and we've made a lot of changes. Just for the sake of that, we changed some of the systems to work similarly to how they were before, just so the player will understand, what's happening. This is something very important, and this is a like I guess tip for other game designers out there. If you have an idea for a mechanic and you cannot explain it in few words, or you cannot present this into graphics in a way that people can read this without reading a table, then this is probably a bad idea. and we find ourselves in this place quite a few times. But right now we polish this. We have some help with testing from people outside of the team who have a different perspective of the game. Right? We sometimes lose this, I would say, distance. When you're just sitting there working on that, you need a little bit of a break sometimes to just look at this as a game and not as a project that you work on.
Yeah.
So any input from outside of the team is very welcome, because you're not sure what's clear to people and not. Because when you design this, you know how this works. It's not a problem for you, but when someone comes right from the outside and plays this, he needs, of course, tutorials, but sometimes the tutorial books won't be enough. If it's not intuitive, that's a problem, right?
Yep. And especially again with something like tactical strategy like this, if one system doesn't work or it's confusing to people, it brings down the entire game. It's not exactly like something you can kind of cut up piecemeal and design like one element at a time.
Yeah, everything is connected. I don't know if that was the best project to make as a first game, but it was definitely something that allowed me, because I also make game design for this, to learn a lot. And I think it will be way easier for us to move forward after this and make another game, because this just forces you to think about everything. You need to have this overview, right? You need to zoom out and take a look at all your systems and see how they are connected, and maybe sometimes something isn't connected so strongly, so is it really needed, right? Maybe you need to get rid of this so everything else will be more clear.
Yeah.
And it takes time.
Time.
But it's very satisfying when it clicks.
Now, as you were saying a few minutes ago, Michael, regarding like the general gameplay of the tactical layer with the stealth and kind of sneaking around and avoiding enemies, like was that gameplay loop there from the beginning, or did that have to be iterated on during development?
No, that was set from the very beginning. That was the main idea around this, is that you sneak around. If you need to bring down bees, then you need to prepare an ambush, because bees are always stronger than you. From the very beginning, I knew that this is supposed to be an asymmetrical gameplay, right? When the enemies have different behaviors, different abilities, they can do different stuff than your guys can do. We kind of lost it along the way with the first iteration. But then we strongly get back to that, added new mechanics that make this stealth really visible. You can feel this, that this is the way I should play it. But fortunately for us, it was mostly a matter of balancing stuff. We have very good systems, very good tools to build, and right now we can build like probably 2 or 3 games out of what we have in the project right now. We could do like a melee and shooting brawler, or something like an XCOM, like seriously. But we focus on something like that because this is something that you can't see very often. I think like only probably Visible Ink is really like the only turn-based stealth game out there.
Yeah. Invisible Ink, and that's another really good game of mine I enjoy playing. And you're right, like stealth and turn-based are like one of those very weird combinations. For older fans watching this, you may remember the Metal Gear Acid series on the PSP. That was also, that one added in a CCG on top of stealth, on top of turn-based strategy. Because they wanted to make things easy for themselves when they were designing that one.
Yeah, I haven't played this, but I was thinking about this because I found some emulator for PSP, and I think this is available there. But we'll see. Maybe I'll find some time for that sometime soon. Okay, I think we have some questions in the chat.
Yes, we do. I should about get that. Zern asks, from a balancing perspective, how do you go about making sure that you keep the monsters organically dangerous rather than artificially? And that's a very tricky topic. It's one thing that I see with XCOM in particular, especially with Firaxis' take, that when you go up in difficulty, it basically adds more health to the enemies, which it's not really, I think, organic in my opinion. Yes, a sectoid that has 10 points of health, it's tough, but it's tough because you can't one shot it. Like, it still gives some level of depth, but again, it's always hard, I think, for these kinds of games to make it feel like it's an organic encounter versus, again, like the unseen hand of the developer guiding things. And I want to come back to that point in a minute, but let's get to Zaren's question about like the enemy design.
Everything that can be summarized, you need to do a good AI, right? But this is a very vague answer, right? We knew from the very beginning that monsters need to have a feel, and this may also sound pretty vague, but this is, I think, like the core of designing a game. You need to have a vision, right? You need to know what feel you want to get, and then you need to make changes as long as you reach this feel, right? And with our monsters, I think like this very specific monsters, when you just put them one on the map and you start running around, this won't be so fun. But the way I try to design this in an interesting way is to making like combos with them. Like you create a specific tactical situation. Like we have these werewolves, we call them brawlers. And if you have if you're wondering why we are calling these enemies the way we do, it's like we wanted to give them names that hunters would give them. It's like from the in-game perspective. So we have these brawlers, and they are heavy hitters, right? They are the guys that do a lot of damage. They have quite a lot of health. Classic beasts, right? The classic beast. It will attack you on sight. It will try to kill you with everything it has. But then you put a floater next to it. This is a flying naked lady, right? And this combo isn't so easy to engage, right? Because a floater it's flying. So if you lay some traps on the ground and you have some traps, she wants to trigger them, right? So your classic like way of doing things. Okay, I'll put the trap and then just lure him and go that way, won't work. So you need to balance stuff, and then it starts getting tricky, and this is almost like a puzzle, and then I think it gets interesting. What else? We have classic behaviors of other tactical games, like they're idling or they are searching or they are ready for combat, and you can trigger these changes in their states by the smell mechanic or the sound mechanic that we talked about before. So even if you try to sneak past them, the wind may change. They can smell you, and you need to change your strategy, because maybe you wanted to knock down the enemy with a backstab, but he's searching right now, so he's aware that something is around, and you won't be able to do this anymore. AI is something that we'll probably be polishing to the launch. We are still finding some stuff that we don't like. Recently, we added the option for the monsters to do use different abilities. Basically, before that, I always wanted to give a monster like a role. So like this brawler is this pure attack. We have a Deathwalker that is like this huge zombie type of enemy. This is like pure defense. Floater is more around, is based more around negating some of your stuff, right? And so on and so forth. But so they had only like one ability. Right now they still play this role, but they can do different kind of stuff. So if you take this brawler for example, it can attack you, or it can attack you with a stronger attack that will drain his stamina. Right, so he's like an enraged beast in a berserk mode, and he will start burning off himself. Or it may use this growl attack to drain your stamina. So you never 100% sure what the enemies will do, and I think this also adds to this more organic feel. This is all in their AIs. It's not like completely random. There are specific situations where they are more keen to use a specific ability in specific situations. So they see more than one hunter or something like that.
Yeah, and like that kind of organic play, I think is one of like the hardest things to do with any kind of tactical based game, because again, by the fact that it is on a turn by turn basis. Like if we go back to XCOM for instance, I'm sure like you as well as the chat knows that with XCOM 2 they really try to lean more into stealth gameplay for a lot of the maps, with being able to basically start and conceal. But in the same breath though, it still doesn't feel very organic by the fact that the second one person gets spotted, not only everybody on the map gets alerted, but even somebody who could have been, hiding like 50 feet that way, they also are spotted as well. And it's very hard for these kinds of games, because again, a major part about tactical strategy is the fact that you are abstracting everything. Like, there's no real-time elements in these kinds of games. So, on one hand, you have to design all the systems, but if it's so, I'm not sure if I want to use the term like rigid in terms of its design, that, like, no matter what you do, it's always going to end up like the same outcome. It starts, I think, really bog down that gameplay loop.
No, I think it's all about this AI and how it makes decisions. I know that in XCOM, this outcome is calculated way before you made these decisions, and that's probably why it feels that way. With the stealth, we took a like a very close look to XCOM 2, right? This is the biggest game of the genre on the market, so that would be very dumb not to take a look, right? And yeah, very early on, I knew that shared stealth, concealment, how you want to call this is not a good thing, especially in this game. So no, we don't have a situation when a hunter is exposed and everyone else is exposed as well. No, you can actually use this into your advantage. You may lay some traps and then make a sound, or just run to the enemy. Here I am, follow me.
That's my stealth strategy for people watching. That's how I'm stealthy.
You do whatever is good for you, right? There's a lot of these tools, a lot of weapons, and this is something that we knew from the beginning, that every hunter will have like his own concealment, right? And other hunters cannot break this. If this guy is exposed, he can lure enemies somewhere to the side, so maybe I can take this objective, right? Activate this shrine or whatever. So you have a lot of these tools. You can do different stuff. Throw pebbles, around the map, so they can start investigating.
And just to clarify, if somebody breaks stealth or is exposed, can they reinitiate stealth like after the enemy's dead, or are they like permanently exposed like the rest of the map or session?
No, you can just run away and then hide again.
Okay.
If you run away from their vision range, they have cones. You can access something that we call hunter sense, and then take a look exactly what the vision cones are. Because we didn't want to make the UI too busy in the basic screen. So you can take a look at that. You can run away, but you need to hide smart because they will run after you. They will start investigating. So if you, for example, hide in the bushes, I don't know, to a few hexes away, but the wind won't be in your favor, then the beast can smell it, your smell, and still finds you. So you need to be careful when you hide yourself. There are also stuff like partial cover and full cover. It's not like in XCOM when it shields you from the shots. It's more about vision. So when you have a smaller cover, it will screen you from the vision of the enemies, but only if you are stick to this, right? You are in hex-to-hex contact with us, and the full cover will just screen everything in its path.
Okay.
So it's the cover is based on the vision rather than any bonuses to defense.
Now, earlier in the cast, you mentioned that the mission or the actual progression of the game is not about killing enemies. That just like clearing a map is not advisable in Alder's Blood. So, in terms of like I guess a mission structure, like what again you don't have to go too far into detail if it's spoiler related, but like what is like going to be like I guess like a basic objective that the player's going to have to go for?
Usually, when you start a mission, you are tasked with like scouting the area ahead of you. So you have this objective to reach the target, so you can see what's ahead of you, and then you need to either activate something, like this maybe a shrine, or someone tasks you to fix something, or maybe you need to pick up and bring something to someone else, or maybe kill a specific monster. So you have like an objective to kill this specific brawler, or just a number of specific monsters. And that's what you need to do. But most of the time it won't end there. You need to escape, from the mission area. At the beginning, we had these objectives to end after you make them, but then you can make these suicide runs, and it's kind of breaks the immersion. So if you're supposed to be sneaky, then okay, pick this up and then run away. Kill this guy, run away, activate these shrines, and get back to your quest giver. And then you are more careful. You will use your tools more carefully. You won't just spam everything. Like I have this shrine here. I just use this last trap and then whatever, right? Now you need to look out if this is something that also XCOM 2 does. Yeah. Right? And this is good. I think this is nice. It adds to the overall feeling of like realism or whatever you want to call this. But it's just smarter, I think. We don't have any timers, like hard timers. We have some like soft timers, I would say. We have a mechanic that we call darkness. And this is connected to what we are saying about this not being rewarded by killing beasts. So this is a system that is based on RNG, but it's not something that influences the gameplay that much in its basic mechanics. So this is like this will of this god that we are supposed to kill. This is the dark forces of the world, and the longer you stay on the map, it builds up its power. And with every monster that is not part of the objective, you also add points to this system, right? So every time you kill something that is not your kill, that is not supposed to be your kill, you strengthen this system, and then it can buff an enemy that is on the map. It can summon more enemies to the map, or it can change one of the enemies into this like avatar that is like almost like a mini boss.
And that sounds like very reminiscent, again, going back to Invisible Ink, with their whole alert system, and how, again, like the more you do, it escalates.
Yeah, I think this is a smarter way of doing this. Because, in these tactical games, you need to have time to prepare, right? And I find myself a lot of times in XCOM when I was forced to do stupid decisions because the time was started running out.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't like that. I didn't like that. There was a mod that changed this. That this counter started going down when you expose yourself. So in concealment, it was paused, and I think this is one of the best mods for XCOM 2 if you're playing on PC. So we designed a system that have this like soft, I don't know, timer, whatever you want to call it, soft way to push you to maybe finish your objective right now. Right now, don't camp in the corner.
And yeah, like again, as we were saying, like with this kind of like try and make it feel organic in terms of playing the game, and I think that's been one of like the few like big problems I had with XCOM or Firaxis Take, that it does feel very like inorganic in a lot of elements of its design. And one thing that I just wanted to clarify, I think you may have said this, Michael, but in terms of the map layouts, are the maps procedurally built in Alder's Blood, or are they handmade?
They're handmade.
Okay.
We designed a system for something like that. Maybe we'll use it in something like an expansion, but this is a stealth game, and you need to handcraft the situations, to be really interesting, in my opinion. And I don't know if any algorithm would do that, like in a good way.
It's very hard when we see like procedural maps in like a strategy-based game. I mean, even with Invisible Ink, it was very like nondescript in terms of its level design, because that was procedural, but you really weren't like focusing on like the personality of like the levels. Like, it was basically, here's an objective, let's build the whole level around that, and then you go over there. And then with XCOM, like, this is one of the issues a lot of people had. Like with the original XCOM 1 by Firaxis, they used handmade maps, but because cover was such a requirement of playing that game, because if you were out of cover, everything got like a 60% like bonus to hit you kind of thing. It rendered, again, a lot of your choices meaningless. It's like, I can't run over there because there's no heavy cover. So they tried to change that with XCOM 2, and the maps were more, if I remember right, I think they were not so much procedural, but they were kind of like stitched together from various handmade elements.
We were thinking about exactly the same technique. You have like chunks of the map, and you just put them together, so you have like this situation here, and you build I don't know, like a little arena, and then you have cover outside, and then you have something maybe more like a corridor.
We're both doing the hand gestures for people watching us live right now.
You need your hands, right? You need your hands sometimes to explain stuff. And in the end, we just grabbed this idea, and I think this is for the better, because we have a story that is not just there to be like a reason for you to finish the game. I spent a lot of time writing this story. I think it's the best I could do. The best I could do. I hope that you will like it. And these maps, show this. If we have a situation when we tell people that there is this war with these beasts, and the forces of the city, there's the first city of men, that is in this area that we are playing, and they are fighting. Then we need to show this, right? We need to show the casualties of war, right? The equipment, everything like that. And so I could sit down and craft this, right? It required a lot of this terrain elements, and we are still drawing more and more, and there's never enough of them. But the immersion is better. It's just, you just see that, okay, I'm here, right? When they said that I will be, right? It's not just another random city or another I don't know, random something, and there's, for whatever reason, there's a cemetery, right? I know that we are ranting a lot about XCOM, but I'm a huge fan of this game. I have like 200 hours in this game, but so, I know why they did this. Like that. I understand why they did this. Maybe sometimes it's we would like to have more freedom, right? We have more options, but one huge advantage that XCOM has over its other games, basically, it's easy to learn, right? It's easy to learn. I don't think that Alder's Blood will be as easy to learn. I think this is a game that will require a little bit more from the players, but in the end it will offer more tactical options. At least I hope so. That's the way I want this to be. So, for example, like movement system, right? In XCOM, you can move once and then shoot, or you can move like twice, right? And then it will end your turn. And in Alder's Blood, we have a more fluent system, and this was very much needed, to get this stealth feel right. Because to get this stealth, these ambushes, you need to outmaneuver, right, your enemies. You need to be able to move and position yourself in this exactly right place. So first of all, we have two movement ranges. First one works a little bit like in Civilization 6. So you have like a range of 10, and you can move back and forth as long as you have not spent all of your movement points.
Okay.
Right, so it's not like you move and then suddenly it ends your turn. As long as you have this movement plus nothing happens, you can, I don't know, step 2 hexes to the right and go back, and right, it will only take 4 movement points out of your hunter. If you want to move further, you can, but it will start draining your stamina. Stamina is the resource that replaced action points in Alder's Blood, and this is like universal resource. We used to have action points, but this is another example of this getting this game more user friendly, right? Okay, we had two resources, let's just combine them into one. So the stamina is used for making attacks, for throwing, I don't know, grenades, stuff like that. But you will also lose your stamina when you want to extend your movement, right? He will start becoming tired, and that's why it drains this stamina. Or when you get hit by enemies, and this is one of the strategies against enemies. You can just try to, outright kill them, or maybe it's easier to just drain their stamina, with weaker attacks like throwing knives, or maybe put some status effect that will drain the stamina, and then it will knock him down. He will lose its next turn. Same applies to your hunters. And then you can just move forward, right? You don't have to kill him. You'll kill him because there's these penalties, as I said, with darkness, and there are some other stuff. Like your hunters are like in between light and dark, and this dark will affect them. I don't want to spoil this too much. We decided this could be like a nice surprise for people that will play this. That there is this mechanic. But killing everything left and right is not an option.
Yeah.
And the stamina was an idea that came out along the way. At first, I wanted to use just classic action points, but more like in the older XCOMs when you had more of these action points.
Yeah.
But then this idea with stamina popped out, and we kind of had a harder time with it. We started using action points. But finally, we found a good way to use it, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah,
it works nice now.
As you were saying, like earlier, like the asymmetry of Alder's Blood, like these are very challenging elements to put in, because once you change one system, you have to figure out how does that apply to the enemies now, or if you add something new to the enemies, you have to think, okay, do I have a counter tactic in play for the player? Because if you don't, then you run that situation that the game feels completely imbalanced one way or the other. And this is one of the things I think XCOM has definitely had trouble with, that the beginning of an XCOM game is always going to be the hardest because you don't have any tools. But many people have found that once you get to about like the mid to maybe 3/4 of the way through, if you've done well, you will break that game. Like squad Overwatch site snipers with grenadiers who can just blow up everything, and then Ranger just like runs in and gets like multiple sword kills. It's like, okay, what you got for me now, game? But conversely, if you don't get to that point, and then you're trying to take like rookies in, you're fighting, psychic psionic troops and chrysalids and all that, you're pretty much screwed. You're bringing, a knife to a gunfight in that regard.
Yeah, we were aware of that, and we have some systems to make it easier for players. To even if they lost some of their veterans, or the veterans are not suited for fighting. There are some ways to do that, but I think this is we will go back again to the stealth thing. In an Alder's Blood, it's not really about killing everything, so you get more options, of course. At the very beginning, you won't have as many. You need to learn the game. If you just throw everything at the player, then he'll get lost. But this is more about how else I can approach the situations, and the enemies are not the only obstacle that you need to overcome. We'll have something that we didn't really use so far, but we created a system of something that we call like universal traps. This is like a inside type of a name for this mechanic, but basically there are some elements of the map that can be like activated, usually by stepping on them by any faction. So it can be you or the enemy. So this could be like broken glass right on the map. It will make sound when you step on it, or maybe there will be something like acidic pools. When you go into this, it will deal chemical damage. So something like area of denial thing, and in a game that is so strong about mobility, it can create some interesting situations. And we have other ideas how to use it. The system is kind of flexible. So we can create some like artillery fire, coming out, of our like mission area, but there still bees, so the city forces, attack these bees. So our idea is to like maybe not, create more and more of these monsters that will have just more HP and different attack animations, and they will pretty much be the same, but with different skin. But just to complicate the situation of the map. So at the beginning, you just we're dealing with monsters that walk on their legs, so you can put traps. Okay, you have a monster that now flies. You cannot use traps on him. You could backstab enemy. Okay, now you have an enemy that cannot be backstab and knock down so easily. We need to find a different way to do this. And so on and so forth. And then map changes. Okay, so you could run around any way you want. Okay, now you have this glass. Will you run here and alarm these enemies, or maybe you will try to figure something out, with your tools that you have. So, this is a process. This is, I think, the process that is the most difficult, because this game is probably right now 40 hours long, and get a progression right in a 40-hour long gameplay is pretty hard.
Yes.
It is pretty hard. We are still trying to find a good way to give players these new tools that they can choose. Right now it's based on like loyalty system. There are 4 great houses, like great forces that rule the city of men in this area, and we can work for them, and they can reward us, with more stuff, more weapons, more tools. But there are some other ideas, and we'll see if we'll be able to bring them to the launch version. Maybe they will go a little bit later. We'll see. Right now, we just yesterday finished the true alpha. Right, the game has a beginning, the end. Everything is there. Maybe you're missing some audio assets or visual assets, but it's there. And right now, everybody is set to just play this. See. And try to find as many issues that we have, as possible, balance issues, progression issues. We have still some time, to make this work.
Oh yes.
And if you're a backer with the pledge level of closed beta access, or you're higher, you can access this closed test and help us, do this. This could be a huge help, seriously, because as I said before, we look at this game from different perspective, and this is something that is a problem. This is a problem.
Yeah. And again, with a design like this, it's something that you don't really want to be making grand changes, when you're 50% of the way done, kind of thing. It's not like, oh, let's just completely rebuild our stealth system or our detection mechanics then. I'm sure we'll get it all done in a week, right?
Yeah, no, no, we won't have some tragic changes right now. No, so far people who play this like this. So far people who play this like this, and the only problem that we may have is this progression. Right now, when we'll give people this options, and will they have enough options in this part of the game? Right. This is the only concern that I have right now. Like, seriously.
Mm-hmm. And Zirin asked this question earlier. Have either of us played a 40k Mechanicus, which is another tactical strategy game? It does not use hit chances, but it uses like a stamina-like mechanic.
Oh, they have stamina? No, I haven't played this. I think I have this in my library, but
I don't think I have it. I think one of my fans was saying to try one of the 40k games, but I think that was Martyr, which was more of an ARPG than tactical strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to ask, have you had a chance to play, like, speaking about like very weird tactical strategy games, have you played Mario plus Rabbids yet for the Switch?
Yes, and I don't know why anybody like took this as an inspiration. Yet I don't know if I would start over, because I played this when we were like halfway through with Alder's Blood. But seriously, at some point I was thinking about some of the mechanics that were there, because this is one of the smartest game out there. Like seriously, I was so surprised. I don't like this kind of stuff. I would go with rabbits. I don't like Mario that much. Sorry, I know that this is not a popular opinion, but I'm not a huge fan of Mario. I'm a fan of Luigi.
There we go. That's the right answer. That's how you recovered there.
Yeah, I'm very hyped for Luigi Mansions, by the way. But yeah, I was playing this, and this is smart. Like, this is really smart. It's simple when it should be simple. Like, I really like the idea of the cover that is this simple, but this movement, right? This movement changes everything. And this is something that is worth taking like a deeper look and trying to figure out what can be done with it, in a more, because this is a relatively simple game, right? You have this mission, then you just run around collecting coins. But if someone would try to make like a XCOM-ish type of experience with this kind of idea of this movement, or just this idea of getting to your teammates and then something happens, like you get a buff of some kind, then I think this could be something interesting. Like, seriously, very interesting.
Yeah, and I really enjoy it as well. And I think again, for a lot of like the simple stuff it does, that just feels, I think, a lot better in your hands compared to, I think, XCOM. Which again, like, we can go back to XCOM 27 more times in this podcast. And
True.
like, there's one thing I wanted to bring up specifically, again, like talking about XCOM, and that was the use of the pods for how the enemies work. Now, for those of you who don't know, in XCOM by Firaxis, the enemies are basically placed on the map in these little groups. Usually it's, I think, 2 to 4 enemies, maybe one if it's like a very big one. And of course, if you trigger one, it triggers that entire pod. But the problem, of course, comes in that if you're trying to move around the field, and this goes back to, again, that clash of the design. If, let's say, I trigger a pod, and then, they're on the field, they're trying to kill me, and I go, oh, let me try and move around them, or try to do something specific. Guess what? I could trigger another pod. Or another pod gets triggered on top of that, and soon it goes from, 4 on 3 to maybe 4 on 8. And then at that point, it's basically, there's no strategy in the world that's going to save me if I'm outnumbered 2 or 3 to 1. And again, like going back to Alder's Blood, with kind of like how you're building the stealth system and the fact that you can go in and out of it. And you said earlier with the darkness, being able to resupply the enemies or bring them back. Like, it sounds like it's going to be a different feel in terms of like dealing with the enemies on the field than it is with XCOM.
Yeah, they are not connected in the spots. We were thinking about this, but this was more about spawning them on the map. If we were discussing still, the generated maps, not the handcrafted maps. So that was only for this purpose. But no, enemies work independently. they are beasts. Some may say that we made this easier for us. That they do not have to be soldiers, right? And they don't have to create more interesting tactical situations. But that was intentional. That was intentional. We are the smart guys. They are the beasts that work on the instincts, and they work independently from each other. But it doesn't matter that they do not interact with each other at all, right? Some enemies can call on others. We want to add some enemies that will buff, other enemies. This is something that is certainly needed, and we'll probably add this as soon as possible. We are thinking about something that like an initiative, classic initiative, when it is like a stat, and these guys go before these guys, and some smaller stuff, like a guy gets alarmed by something, like a smell or something like that. Then in a smaller radius, other guys could be like alarmed as well because they see that this guy, found something. But I wanted to be to all of this to be more organic, as we said before. So if you have a group and you want to lure this specific guy out of this group, you have options to do that. So you have this pod, right? You have this pod of the big brawler and some smaller shriekers, as we call them, like the dog-like enemies. You have options to get this specific guy out of the group, so you can take him out before alarming the rest. I think on the Kickstarter there is a good example of that. Let me take a look. Yeah, this is just under the stealth banner. There is an example when a guy is shooting with this harpoon launcher, and he's shooting an enemy that is further away from the hunter. There is a brawler, closer to him, but this brawler is not alerted because this is a silent weapon. So this is a good example of how the stealth kills work. Yeah. If you have right tools for the job, you can kill enemies that without alerting others.
Yeah. And again, like, it's always tricky. Like, again, like, this is the stream where take a shot every time we mention XCOM at some point in it. But it's very hard to get that feeling that it's organic in terms of how things play out. Zarin mentioned, of course, avoiding the detection cascade with like that kind of cell system. And it's very hard in terms of that balance, because as we were saying a few minutes ago, you always have that issue of just how powerful do I want to make the player? And again, like, each one of these conversations, each one of these topics, that's a good like hour to an hour and a half in terms of what we get into. But it's always very tough when we talk about tactical strategy games like this. Like, Invisible Ink is another one. There, I mentioned another game for people watching. That with Invisible Ink, while your characters do grow in power, it's still very much dependent upon the tools that you either buy or find in the game. And these tools can do a lot. Like, if you get yourself a gun that can stun or kill an enemy and can deal with armor, it mitigates a lot of the threat at that point. But if you don't get that and you go into a level where all the enemies have like +3 armor, it runs to that case of, what the hell does the game expect me to do at that point? The same thing with XCOM. If I'm not able to get upgraded guns or get better skills for my characters, and I go too far into that game, it runs to that case of, okay, now we have the Sonic troops on the field, now we have the Muddons coming at me, but none of my weapons can really do anything, and all my tactics are basically progression locked. So, am I basically screwed at that point? And I think this was one of the things I liked about Mario plus Rabbids in that very strange way, that it avoids that issue. Because you can always go back to a level, you have the whole complete respect, but it never felt like a character was just completely useless, or, my tactics were just gone, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, and I think that's because, even if you change the weapons in Mario, they're different but not better.
Yes.
Right? You were swapping some status effects or things like that, and that's exactly what we are doing with Alder's Blood. they're not like better or worse weapons. They may be weapons that you more like. Basically, you just like this type of play style, and with your hunters you have a group of three. This is the basic like party in the game. Your build is not the build of the character, but the build of the whole party, right? And there are different types of these weapons. There are different classes of weapons, right? You have rifles, you have pistols, great swords, axes, and they have different roles. They work differently, but within these classes there are different, of course, different specific weapons, right? So you have different axes, different great swords, and so forth. And but it's not like this rifle is better from this rifle. It's not like this linear progression in XCOM, and you just have to go, for Gauss weapons, and then you go for
Like the
plasma
weapon
weapons.
goes like, this one does plus 5 damage, this one does plus 7 damage, this one does plus 12 damage, and you get the picture.
Yeah, it's this progression system that I don't really like in games. I'm a huge fan of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, as I said, but they also have this issue. You just level up to keep up, right, with the game, and not to make any difference, right? And I like a progression system that adds more ways for me to do different stuff. You also base the progression, I think, more heavily on the tools that you will be able to bring than on the progression of the characters themselves, because there is a mechanic when these guys get basically tired up by this adventure that they embark on, and you will have to sacrifice them. Basically, there's a mechanic that I mentioned before, like to make your new recruits keep up with what's going on, and along the way your guys can acquire some negative traits, we call them. I won't go too far into how this works, but you get these negative perks, and one of the ways to you don't have to retire your guy, but you can perform this special ritual in this game, and this guy can sacrifice himself to get some of his powers to younger generation, basically, right? And so your newer guys can get some XP from them, but they won't be burdened with the negative traits that the previous hunters had. And they can be more efficient as long as they get their negative traits and you decide that they are not needed anymore. But these are just like modifiers. Okay, this guy can have a little bit more stamina, but we'll lose some health. Smaller stuff that won't affect gameplay that much as what you have in your inventory, in your armory, basically, right? If you have access to these weapons that are loud, you'll be able to deal more damage, but you will expose yourself. And how will you use it, right? Will you just try to kill everything that will go towards you because you made a lot of sound, or maybe you pair this with traps, so you cover your flanks with these traps, and the enemies that will walk towards you will walk into these traps. This is like like a real tactic that you can use, real build that you can do, loud stuff and traps. Or maybe you prefer melee, so you go with melee.
Yeah, and I think that's very important in terms of, again, giving that game the sense of that organic nature to it. That it's not a case of, I'm always in stealth or I'm always in combat, and those two fields will like never cross, or what works in one will only work in that regard. It sounds like with Alder's Blood, like each tool is basically going to have a specific purpose, and within that purpose, that's what you want to use it for. And then it's a case of, okay, if I have, these 3 weapons, and these are my 3 favorites, how do I make those work on the field? It's not a case of saying, this weapon must be used on, let's say, map B. And if I don't use it, I'm screwed. But then I need to use this weapon for map C, because that's how the game was designed.
No, we try to avoid this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. There is another thing that we've added. This is something that we call damage combos, basically. So all of the characters, beasts, and the hunters have resistances against different damage types. I think we have 7 of them. I don't remember, the exact number. I think no, 8. 8 damage types and 8 resistances. And when we start the game, all of our hunters have like nothing. No, they are not vulnerable or invulnerable to any damage types. But beasts are, and this is a like kinda binary system, and either you take the damage or you don't take damage at all, right? If you have resistance against a specific damage type, you will just null everything. And
Okay.
if you have weaknesses, you will deal double damage or just some more damage. We still are balancing, this bonus damage. But it gets trickier. There are status effects in the game, right? There are like classic ones like bleeding, when they just are damaged over time, or a sickness that works the same but it affects stamina instead of HP. But these change the resistances. So if, for example, you have an enemy that is resistant to spirit damage, right? This is something that is more it's not that common, right? This is something more special. And you find yourself in a situation you have a weapon with this damage, you can inflict bleeding status effect, and this enemy automatically gets weak against this spirit damage because he has bleeding. So even if you brought something that maybe won't be suitable for you, there are tools. There are these items that you can equip your hunters, and this is a good way to change this situation, or just build your party around these damage combos. So if you have a mission that is about killing something, bring something like that, or maybe you just want to play like that. Okay, I want to be prepared to bring down a heavy enemy quickly, right, without alerting enemies. So I get the tools that will allow me to build this damage combo.
Okay. Now, just as a quick aside, time check wise, we are over an hour into the cast. In terms of topics left, I have a few more gameplay related questions for you, Michael, and then I want to talk a little bit more about the Kickstarter. I think lengthwise, I think for me at least, I think maybe like another 30 to 40 minutes if that works for you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
No problem. I just get
I know.
pumped.
And for the people watching us live right now, if you have any gameplay related questions about Alder's Blood, please get them in because we'll be moving on to the Kickstarter probably in the next few minutes. But yeah, figuring out how to design your tools around that is very interesting topic. Again, it's one we could probably spend a lot more time on.
Yeah, we have a lot of these, so if you start going through each one of them, that would take a lot of time.
Now, I guess in terms of you mentioned the maps are handmade. Are the missions themselves also handmade? Is there an actual linear campaign through Alder's Blood, or is there more, I guess, randomization around that?
No, there's a linear. There's a story arc that is completely linear, and this is a big story. Then there are optional missions that you can do for these great houses that I mentioned and build the loyalty, so you can get the. And they are built around different types of gameplay. So, for example, House Ashmore is more about firearms, while House Blackwell are more about classic melee. So, if you prefer something like that, you work for these guys. There are some random missions as well, but this is all handcrafted. But there's some random stuff happening, like a mission that will pop up, and you can do this, and you make a decision: will you kill this monster that is standing on the road, or you just leave it, and some other people, some other travelers will find this and kill this. They're not sometimes they are gameplay related. So, for example, you may trade some resources. But I wanted them to be more story-based, immersive. So you make a decision that won't maybe affect your gameplay that much, but will you take care of this child that is all alone in this very dangerous world, right? Things like that. Something to build, show more of the world building.
Okay.
As well. But there are also some missions that will pop up. It's not like only linear path. Optional missions also have their own story arcs that will like tell you more details about the world and these characters that you've met in the main story.
All right. Let me check the page here. I have a few more questions for you. Okay, one thing that we were kind of like touching on the last part, but regarding like the character progression. Now, you've already mentioned that the game seems to be more focused again like on the gear and what equipment you have available at any given time. In terms of how like characters grow, I guess what kind of like progression will players have in terms of like how the hunters will get more stronger? Like, are there like perks, skills, or is it again like just primarily focused on whatever tools you give them on a given mission?
No, they will grow with time. They will grow with time. The classic XP, but you get XP only from the mission main objective. As I said, you won't get like extra XP for kills because that would break the playstyle, right? People will start cleaning the maps, and that's not what we wanted. So we introduced this penalty mechanics, and darkness is only one of them. There's the second one. But when they acquire enough XP, they level up, classic stuff. But you won't get like an ability to choose from. There's not like a ability tree, but you choose one of 5 randomly generated, drawn from the pool traits. They are created by us. So you won't be able to know what you get. Right, in this pool this time around, you just pick what's best for you at the time you are presented with these options. And why did we do this that way, right? You probably found yourself in some of these games where you've seen or you just decided that this is the best build that you are able to get, right? From the sniper in XCOM, for example. Right, and okay, I think that the gunslinger is the best, and everybody on the internet says that the gunslinger path for the sniper is the best. So I will always pick the gunslinger perks, right? And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to people to try out different things. And these traits can affect stats. So, for example, the guy is big boned and he gets some HP bonus, or the big lungs, so he gets some more stamina. But there are also stuff that will increase the hunter's performance in the camp. Camp is this like, I don't know, some people call this meta game. So basically anything that happens in between missions. You travel with your caravan, you can set up a camp, and there are some activities that these guys can take, like scavenging for resources in the regions that they are camping in, or guarding the camp from ambushes, or crafting, for example, right? Or just resting to regain health. And these traits can also, increase their performance in these fields as well. So, some people can have increased crafting capacity, so they can craft more in a day. On the strategy layer, as we call this, everything is based on the days. So when you travel to neighboring region, it takes 1 day. When you wait in the camp, it takes 1 day. We used to have a linear time, like in XCOM, but it just didn't work out well. It was it turned out to be kind of boring. We didn't really. We didn't have like a tools or like a very solid idea to make this work this way. It was also very reminiscent of XCOM, too reminiscent of XCOM, and it just didn't work out. We created something different.
So it sounds like with like the perks or like the random traits that you can choose from, that again, you're avoiding giving characters, I guess, again, like special skills or special things that they can then, that can radically change combat. As you said with the gunslinger, for instance, like those perks for XCOM. Like for me, like last night, I was really wishing more of my characters had run and gun, for instance, in XCOM 2. And again, like it's one of those very hard things to do with a lot of these tactical strategy games is that whenever you introduce like a hard value or a hard tool for the player, that can override other things. Like
Yes.
like with the sniper. Ooh, hold on one second. Like with the sniper idea. Wow, my voice is really dying on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a good sign, I guess, for the chat. But with like the sniper, for instance, like some of those perks like are just all around amazing. Like some people really like the long watch power that basically lets them just overwatch like anywhere on the map as long as they have vision.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
or run and gun being another example. But the problem is that when you have something that is so locked in terms of its utility, that if it is the best option, as you said, why should I take anything else? Like if
Yeah, exactly.
like in the first XCOM, like if run and gun literally lets me rush an enemy and kill them or get 100% chance, why should I take something that maybe gives me +1 movement range? And again, like this is like the heart of this kind of discussion when we talk about asymmetry in in any kind of strategy-based games. That you're not really comparing apples to oranges. It's basically like you're comparing a tank to a fighter jet. What's better? Well, it depends on what the situation is, essentially.
Yeah, that's our goal. We have an idea that could, give players different abilities, but not something that would be like OP. Something that would give you like another option. Like we are not sure how to implement kick. There is an idea for an update when we could have this kick or a shoulder bash that could push the enemy some hexes. We won't be able to do this like right now probably, but this is something that I would really like to have in the game. And we are still thinking how to give this to the players, right? Because if you give this to all the hunters, the UI will get kind of cramped, right? There will be a lot of these abilities, and maybe this should be like a trait that you can get, maybe some, I don't know, some equipment. There is an idea to create traits that give something like mastery in different weapon classes, and then every weapon has like 2 abilities, for example, like a shot and precise shot, right? And only when you have the mastery in this weapon class, this will allow you to use this other ability. So that's the one of the ideas, to give people things like that. But we'll see. We'll see. It's not that they are overpowered, because you are still trading. These abilities usually have a cooldown, or they require more stamina to use. So it's not that you get something better; you get more. Or more of different stuff, and that's what they would like to stick to.
Yeah, that again seems to be like the better way of kind of designing these games. It's not around I have a better gun; it's I have a different gun. Maybe my gun isn't as fast or as strong as yours, but it does X. And I think like the more variables that play like that, I think generally lead to more interesting discussions of strategy design. It's one of the reasons why I'm really keeping an eye on Phoenix Point. That's the game from the original designer of XCOM. Like, I really hope that game does well, because it sounds like, again, like the XCOM design is so close to being like one of my perfect games, like one of my dream ideas. But it's always those like little details that just nag me about. And again, we've already spent almost an hour like nagging about XCOM. We gotta be careful, or we'll spend a few more. Oscar is saying in chat, "Bring the cat onto the cast." Is that a cat in the corner?
Yeah, he wants something very badly, and I'm not sure what he wants. Probably some attention.
Let me see. There's any other questions mechanically wise? One thing I think I know the answer to this, but I guess just to clarify for people watching live or recorded, is there permadeath in Alder's Blood?
Yes.
Okay, just one. That was a quick one. I just wanted to make sure on that.
Yeah, I think that you will change your hunters quite often. You know, maybe not necessarily from them dying on the mission, because if you play carefully, you know, then they won't die that easily. But there is this idea of them getting tired of this whole situation of them getting too close to the dark, and this affecting them, and then you will have to use the sacrifice mechanic that I described before. And this also ties to this progression system, because when they level up they get these traits, but they're these positive traits, but there are some certain conditions when they can get negative traits as well. So you will have to balance them out sometimes. Maybe you wanted to get more stamina, but this guy get this trait that reduced his health, so maybe I choose the trait with the health, so I could balance this out because I like this guy. Things like that. The trait system is quite powerful, and there's a lot of that we can do to this, and we are still taking a look what else can we add there, without making them OP, but still interesting, right? So yeah, but still the same principle goes there. Give more of different stuff than better stuff.
Yeah. All right. I guess for you, Michael, are there any aspects of the gameplay that we didn't touch on yet that you would like to bring up?
I think that maybe it was spread out from this conversation, but the biggest focus points, right, would be the stamina system. Right, everything is based on the stamina, and the stamina is quite it's more flexible than action points, so you will be able to do more than one stuff. Basically, you can use. Maybe this is something very important for people that play XCOM. In Alder's Blood, you'll be able to shoot and then run, for example.
Oh, thank you. I was just about to say that. That
so yeah.
Oh, that drives me crazy in XCOM with that. With the only attacking nullifies your turn, even if you do on your first one.
Yeah, this is something that I never liked, in tabletop games, because I have the background for war games as well, and this is also one of the main things that I wanted to have in the game, that attacking doesn't end your turn. So if you want to compare this game to XCOM, this is more flexible. It's more flexible in terms of what you can do and in what order, right? But stamina system, so this flexibility, movement system, different, also more flexible. If you want to run around, you can, as long as you have the stamina. No RNG, no to hit chance. Then we have this darkness system, that is like this soft cap for the number of turns you want to play this game. What else? I think these are the most important ones. The stamina, this no RNG, and this flexibility in what you can do and what order.
All right. And a question from Oscar, that a lot of the stuff that you're describing resonates with the Darkest Dungeon. And have you had a chance to play that game? And if so, did you take any inspiration from Darkest Dungeon?
I think I played a lot of Darkest Dungeon. I've never finished it, unfortunately, but I get to the Darkest Dungeon. It was hard.
Yes.
It was hard. But I don't know what was harder, Darkest Dungeon or the attack of the bandits. I'm still not sure what was worse. But anyway, I digress. Any I think the trade system is kinda similar to the quirks, right? Quirks from that. Other than that, I don't know. I think that some of the stuff that maybe not that important, but more putting some weight on the art, more weight on the art in menus, to make it less like a table to read and more like something interesting to look at. The camp screen, if you take a look at our campaign, page, there's this camp, and this is also a kind of similar setup like you have in the Hamlet in Darkest Dungeon. So it also wanted to show, more of this art, get you closer to the world, so we could use this immersion aspect, right? A little bit more, which I really like in games. This is something that for me is very, very important. I can I can be more I miss a word here. I'm maybe not some grumpy about the game if the immersion is good, basically. No. if they, it has a specific atmosphere, I won't be so mad about some of the, gameplay elements that do not fit that well. If I liked, the world and everything like that. Vampire is a good example of that. Mechanically, it's not the best game. It could be way better, but the atmosphere, characters and all of that, make up for all the flaws in the combat system.
Yeah. And with Darkest Dungeon itself, it's another game that is very much RNG dependent. And again, RNG, that's a topic we gotta be really careful about, because we'll be here all night long if we start getting too much RNG in these kind of games. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to ask you mechanically wise. We talk about the weapon system. We talk about progression, enemies.
There are weather conditions in this game.
Okay.
I don't think we talk about this. So I think we have 6 or some, and they change some of the statistics on both of the sides. That it can be foggy, so the vision range is reduced, or maybe it's raining, so the smell is reduced slightly, and it's windy, so the wind changes more rapidly than usual. And this darkness system that we discussed can affect this as well, the direction of the wind and the weather. The darkness can just change the weather condition, like that. So there are RNG elements, but they are not in the basic mechanics.
Okay. And I just wanted to ask you there, in terms of things that affect the map, or again the darkness, spawning units, does the player get advance warning when those things happen, or will it just occur that turn kind of thing?
You have access to this hunter sense that I talk about, and if you want to take a look at a longer session of gameplay, there's a video on the campaign. This is I think an hour long or something like that, when you play a few missions with Dave from No Gravity, our publisher, and then you will have a good a background to what I'm saying, right? There's this hunter sense mode. You just press spacebar and you are in this, and this mode gives you more information about what's happening, more tactical information, like this vision cones they talk about. You can hover over these guys, and this will give you a small tooltip about the most important information, what state he is he surging or is he idling, resistances, weaknesses, things like that. But also you get the information about the strength of the darkness. It's not super precise, so it's still a little bit vague, but it could give you an idea when you could expect something to hit. It's the darkness, I think it's called the darkness activity, and it could be low, or it can be growing, or it can be high, and if it's high, then expect something to happen, basically.
Okay. So I think with that, again, we talk more generally, we'll be here who knows how long, but we're going to be hitting 2 hours soon on the cast, so I do want to spend at least a few more minutes on the Kickstarter, and then I think we'll wrap things up. But again, Michael, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Again, my afternoon, you're probably almost past midnight, and
no, it's not that late. It's 10 p.m. So.
Okay. By the way, if you're free in the future, we can always have you back on for another tactical strategy chat.
Yeah, if you want, then I'll be more than happy.
All right, but with that, let's move on and talk a little bit more about the Kickstarter and kind of the general development of it. And for the people watching us live right now, if you have any questions regarding the Kickstarter of
Mhm.
Alder's Blood, please get them in now. And I'll give a last call for questions probably in like the next 10 or so minutes, but we'll see. So, for those of you who joined late, Alder's Blood is currently on Kickstarter right now. You guys have officially, let's see, where is it? 13 days left as of the time of this stream. And you did pass, just as we were about to start, the $10,000 mark for the campaign.
Mhm.
So, congratulations on that one.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
in terms of the Kickstarter, I know, like, looking it up, you guys did attempt another Kickstarter for Alder's Blood last year. And
Yeah.
now you're doing it a second time. And this is one of those topics that I think a lot of people don't really talk about in terms of Kickstarter. But what kind of led to you canceling the Kickstarter, the first one? And I guess what did you learn from that to relaunch a Kickstarter? I guess what was it, 17 days ago?
Uh, First of all, we had too high expectations,
Mhm.
of what we can achieve. We wanted to get to raise way more money,
Mhm.
and Kickstarter changed, and
Mhm.
you cannot get this much right now. You cannot fund the whole game with Kickstarter only video game.
Mhm.
There are some big failures, and people are more careful about this. I totally understand this. It's not that I'm salty about this or anything like that. I get it. I get it. So that's one thing. Another thing was this visual presentation of the game.
Mhm.
It wasn't the best we could do, and we changed this. And right now you can see the results of that.
Yeah.
Another thing was the presentation of the campaign page. The first one was very, very clumsy. It was very all over the place, basically. A lot of text, not enough images. That could explain easily what the game is about. So we, used all of this experience to relaunch the Kickstarter because we have publisher support, right? But the game grew. When we pitched this to our publisher, we didn't want to make this much, but like organically, it all started organically. This is like the keyword for this podcast. Right now, we started adding new stuff. We had ideas, and it started growing and growing and growing. And we are near the end of the production cycle, and there are still some stuff left that could be done better, like cutscenes. They need audio, they need voice acting. We could use things like that, and that's why we started this campaign. To get this final polish that this game could use, and people could get on board and test this game with us, be the part of this like close community that we could this is easier to talk with people that are really interested, other than just put this on early access and some people will just leave a bad review, because they don't like the game in this state, because they maybe don't understand really, how the process was and what we expect, from people that really want to support us at this point of development, right? So we think that a closed group that is closer to the project will be something that will be better. But that's it. We have some rewards for backers, exclusive stuff, only for them. So the best way to get them would be to spread the word. It's not necessary to pledge, like huge amounts of money, but spread the word through Facebook and Twitter. We have the social goals there, and we've unlocked the first tier of this, and this is a Kickstarter exclusive weapon for everybody. Now, this is something that we'll probably be discussing with the backers, right? What exactly do they want? How this should work? Maybe we'll have some more experimental design, not OP, but something strange, and we'll see how this works. There are like exclusive quests in tier 2, which we are very, very close. We just need few Twitter shares and exclusive hunter skin. because there's a little bit of customization. Of course, not as grand and nice as in XCOM 2, for example, but you have hunter skins. It's not in 3D. In 2D, it's a little bit harder to do.
Yeah.
But there's still some. So that's the goal. You want to give the game this final polish, this final push, so it will be as good as it deserves. Right? To be.
And I think one thing that's very interesting, as you were describing, Michael, I was looking at the first Kickstarter for Alder's Blood. So I'm watching like some of the cut scenes and the animations in that one. And one of the big things is that, like with the second game, with the second Kickstarter, the one that's on now, like as you were saying earlier, that the character models aren't as like detailed as they were in the first one. But the game, I think, has a cleaner look to it in this iteration than it did in the first one.
Yeah, definitely. Before that, it was like we were drawing assets, but not necessarily next to each other. And you can take a look. This game didn't look very well on screenshots back then. It was like, and we also used this blur effect. Not blur, but it's bloom. No, yeah, it's bloom effect for whatever reason, and everything glows strangely, and you don't know why it glows. No, it was a mess, but it was a good prototype, good starting point. I think that this failure on the Kickstarter taught us a lot. I think it was like a good, bucket of cold water, to take another look on what we were doing. But we are still using all of that. Like, for example, there is a character in the hunter section, the guy in the hood. This is a new hunter skin that I just finished like 2 weeks ago. So we are using some of this stuff like a concept art, for the initial, for the final version of the game. So you can expect some of this stuff, some of these ideas go back, to the game.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to look at, or I just want to mention, in the first one, you mentioned, of course, the idea of like boss class enemies, the apostles. Is there still that concept in like this iteration of Alder's Blood?
No. Okay. This was one of these mistakes that we've made because we wanted to make a stealth game and then we introduce bosses, right? So it's like a clash of ideas. I don't know. Maybe somewhere later in the development, like an update, we want to make some free updates, like free DLCs, for the game if we'll be able. We have some ideas. Maybe we'll find a way to make a boss that could work with stealth mechanics. Maybe something that would work with terrain. I don't know. I don't have like a solid idea for this right now, and not to make this combat heavy,
Yeah, and like that was the thing about Phoenix Point that I found very fascinating. Is that they're going to have procedurally generated quote-unquote boss enemies that can show up on a map. And even XCOM did that with War of the Chosen. But again, we're comparing things back to XCOM here. That it's one of those very weird kind of elements. Because as you said, like, it's a tactical stealth game. But let's have a giant boss that you have to kill. It's like, wait a minute. Those two things aren't really working together.
Yeah. Now, right now, I'm really trying to explain this to everybody in the team that, okay, you have an idea, but you need to process this through everything that was done so far, and you need to process this through what we want to achieve. Like, there was an idea from the team that maybe we should expand on this resistances system and not make this so simple, like either you take damage, no damage, or more damage, but make like levels of these resistances. But still, this would push the game towards this idea of combat heavy, right? If I have so many mechanics in this combat, then hey, they are telling me that I should kill these guys, right? And I want to avoid this. This game is supposed to be about sneaking around, and if you are forced to kill something, then kill something, right? And be prepared for that. But most of the time you are not tasked to kill, stuff.
Yeah. Let me see if anything came up. A question from Oscar from earlier. Now, I guess this is actually very interesting because again, you had two Kickstarters for Alder's Blood. How long did you spend, I guess, preparing for the Kickstarter campaign?
A few months.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it was done,
Yeah.
instantly. We had to make a strategy, to prepare like social stuff, right? The
Yep.
marketing strategy, things like that, where we should post, what should we post. We had to prepare the trailer, things like that. We shared the draft, with people before we launched this campaign. No, that was kind of long process. And the first Kickstarter was rushed. You can see this. It was rushed. We were still not as experienced as we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
This working with the publisher was a good lesson. To organize the work a little bit more, have a better understanding of how much time stuff takes, so it equals to how much it will cost, right? And this is the hardest lesson, because this is something that people don't usually talk about, but this is very important because this is usually be or not to be for the project. This
Yeah.
financial stuff, and you need to be careful with what you promise because you may not have money to make this.
Oh yeah.
No
And
Man's Sky.
uh-huh. Yeah. Oh goodness, yeah. Again, like we could spend who knows how long on like Kickstarters as well with these kinds of conversations. And like, as you said there, like working on the Kickstarter for about 3 months, I think, or a little bit more than that. Like a lot of developers will think, I'll prepare my Kickstarter campaign over a weekend, and that's all we need, and then it'll just work like that. But like going back to the Darkest Dungeon, they spend at least, like, we want to be kind, at least almost like a year preparing for that Kickstarter in terms of social media, doing PR, and actually building the whole
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah, we are building the community for
yeah,
like 2 years probably, right? This
oh
is
yeah,
this is a process. This is a process. Yeah, you cannot just go in out
mm-hmm.
of nowhere because nobody will know you. You won't
Oh yeah,
have this community base that will be like the spreading, center of this. I think people call this like quiet marketing, I guess. I'm not an expert on that, but this
mm-hmm.
like people talking to each other, right, and spreading the word. And this is probably the best way of getting new people
Mm-hmm.
because this is, if someone tells you that this is something cool, you have this like an idea. Okay, this is good because my friend told me that this is nice, so you are more willing to be interested in something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is a process. You cannot just go out of nowhere because nobody knows you,
Yeah.
and the market is saturated greatly. There's a lot of this stuff going on all the time, and you need to be aware of that. That's why Alder's Blood looks how it looks like. We can make another XCOM clone, make some sci-fi soldiers, killing some aliens. But who will really notice that, right? Or maybe make a classic fantasy game with elves and dwarves. I don't think this could be a success. Without like a huge help from marketing department.
Mm-hmm. And again, with the power of word of mouth is certainly real. I mean, with Darkest Dungeon, for instance, like I heard that game from one of the forums I visited. If they didn't make a thread about that, I would have not found about Darkest Dungeon maybe until like release day. But
Yeah.
again, it's very hard to know sometimes just exactly. And I've said this all the time, especially with the Patreon, with the YouTube channel, and of course with the Discord that we bring up a lot here, that you never know who you're talking to in terms of what they're going to enjoy about your work or about who they are in terms of spreading word of mouth. One person may tell somebody else who may tell somebody else who, and again, so on and so forth. Just as someone may just like it and then that's it. But you have to put your best foot out or put your best foot forward when it comes to this marketing side of things. Because as you said, Michael, there are a lot of games being released these days. Granted, there's not like 50 XCOM likes being released, although that would be a dream of mine right there. But there's only so much time in the day that people have to find your work. And
you need to be aware of that and respect that.
Yeah.
Because if someone really shows you this interest, then Be respectful. Be respectful. They just gave you something that you probably didn't give to other devs, right, throughout your day because you were tired or anything like that. And it's okay, right? It's okay that you're tired and that you maybe don't want to, watch a 2-hour podcast, about two guys talking about the game that I don't know about it. and that's okay, But this is something very important. Usually people, when they are starting, they calculate the costs, the time and everything for the development only, and they forget about, spreading the word. And you don't have to spend so much money on that, especially when you're developing the game. You just use Twitter. Twitter is really good, for starting, building the community. You can easily just use this hashtags, right? And you can slowly build, some community around you, or just, get to know people from the industry. For me, this is the main source of information about new stuff that I might be interested in. I found a lot of games that I enjoyed through Twitter, before they were released. Like Wargroove, for example, I was aware of that game, way before it was advertised, more extensively. Pathway, I really enjoyed Pathway. I know that a lot of people were upset about this game, but I think that wasn't fair, with the devs.
That's another game. That's another 40-minute discussion I would like to have about that game. And I gotta be careful here because we're about to hit 2 hours, and we could easily just keep going if we're not careful with these kind of discussions there. But
yeah,
when it comes to the Kickstarter side of things, it is I've spoken to other developers about this. It does become a part of your project. It's not something you can just, shirk off to somebody else or, again, wait till the last minute. You are designing a game, and you're also designing a Kickstarter at the same time. And if you don't treat it like that, it's just not going to work out for you.
Yes. All of this is a process,
Yes.
I need to start as soon as possible, as soon as you have something good to show. Don't be ashamed that this is not as good as it could be. It never will be. You're not at the end of this journey. You don't have a finished product. It won't be a finished product, but there's a lot of people who like to see the progress, right, being made. And this is for them, right? This is for them.
And people like to see the fact that you have work done. It's not you just saying, I have this amazing game, and there's no screenshots, videos, or anything of it. It's just, it's in my head this whole time. Give me $50,000. It doesn't work like that anymore.
No, it shouldn't work like that. And it shouldn't work like that. You need to have something, even when you're looking for investors, they are expecting to have something like a prototype, at least, right?
Yeah.
At least a prototype, and this is something that you should be aware, because the game in your head and the game on your computer, these are two different games,
Yes.
And sometimes strange things happens. Your consciousness, your imaginations can skew the camera angles, for example. There's strange things that can happen in your head that just won't work. They just won't work.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've learned when I was studying art, and a lot of times when I wanted to talk with my professor about something that I wasn't sure about. A lot of times there was this one and the same answer: show me. Right? Don't talk about it. Just show us, and then we'll talk, right? Because we need to see, right? This is a piece of art, and the same with video games. This is a visual art, right? You need to see, you need to know, and it's even more complicated because there's this gameplay, right? Experience that you need to make sure it's right and it's fluid, etc., etc.
And with mechanics, again, the fact that video games are built on layers of abstraction, that just because something seems like it works and it's balanced perfectly in your head doesn't mean that it's going to do the same thing on the computer. And it's very important. I think you said this earlier in terms of trying to figure out what concepts or mechanics you want for Alder's Blood, that you have ideas in your head, but if you can't properly, explain that to someone, if you can't put that to code, then it makes no sense to really, get stuck on them, because if you can't make it, you can't make it. Like, it's not like a case of you trying to. You're not going to, in the 11th hour, design a brand new game system for your design.
Sometimes it's even trickier because you can make something and it works, but people don't understand how it works.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna give them like a 60-page instruction manual, right, for a video game, because people. This is not a board game, right? When this is like written into the game, right? This is tabletop. This is medium like that, and you need to read the instruction manual, right, to know how to play this. This is a video game. Everybody expects that this will explain to me how it plays, and if the game cannot explain to you how it works, then you have a problem. You designed this poorly, right? And you need to change this. And we found ourselves in this situation with movement systems. We had I don't know, throughout all of the project, there was probably 5 iterations of the movement system alone. And just two months ago, there was also different iteration, and we went through 3 of them. And just right now, we are sure that this is how it should work. People are okay with that. The people like it. But it's a process, and you need to show this to people. You need to be careful who you show this to. Unfortunately, this is not as easy. There is always this. There's always this question: should I make a demo? And maybe some people will be asking, why don't we have a demo here? Because, as we said, market is saturated. People don't have that much attention span right now, and sometimes it's like, okay, I played this enough, right? I forget about this. I already played this, especially with Kickstarters, you will have something like tech demo, right? A presentation, and this presentation won't be of the quality of the finished product, right? And not everybody will get this, right? Not everybody will get this. Not everybody is able to understand what the sketch is.
They'll just say that this sucks. Why is this game not done? Or one of my favorite complaints was someone saying, on an early access game, this game went on early access too early. And it's like,
and so there is always this problem, and we decided to not get this demo, because sometimes a day of work can make a huge difference. Because you just found out that this weapon is overpowered and you need to, change this. And this seriously can be a day of work with, playing around with numbers and the statistics of all this stuff, and it makes a new game. But you need time, and usually don't have enough time. And we just decided that it would be better for us to just wait a little bit, and show it to a closer group of people who will be more understanding, of the process, and polish this that way, so the people who will play this and expect, the highest quality will get this highest quality possible. Right?
And going back to what you were just saying in terms of iterating on systems and trying to settle on what you want them to be in the game, that's another big point, especially when you're developing a game like this, that once you've settled on, okay, I want my movement system to be like this, then that kind of becomes locked in terms of your core gameplay. Because like we were saying, in the first part of this cast, you can't design a movement system and then 8% of the way done your game say, well, let's change it to something else. I'm sure it won't affect anything else in our title. Because I've seen games on early access that have done just that. That every 2 steps forward they took, they said, oh, let's redesign this. They go 3 steps back, and then all that work is wasted. But now we have to adjust all our other systems. But then we change it another time. And it just gets into this endless cycle of development. And it can sink a lot of very high concept games like that.
Yeah, Kat is already here.
He heard the design, he wanted to get in.
He has his own ideas, for Alder's plot. There should be more cats in the game, right?
Every character should have a pet cat that gives +5 health when they have them equipped.
Yeah. But yeah, this is all true that you are saying. But and what I not but what I think what causes this is that not every team has someone like director.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen this sometimes, like with From Software games, that Miyazaki is game
Mm-hmm.
director, right? Or Kojima is this director. And some people may like read this like this is, I don't know, their vanity showing, right? I'm the director, like film director. No, someone like this is really needed. You need someone. Sometimes they call them creative directors. This is the guy that is responsible for keeping the game on track. People will have ideas. A lot of these ideas will be bad ideas that need someone who will look on this whole puzzle, right? This jigsaw, and will say, okay, this doesn't fit, right? It won't work with this design, with this route that we chose in the beginning, right? And these bosses in the previous Kickstarter are a great example of that, right? I had to learn this, right? I had to learn this the hard way by failing a Kickstarter, right? And this was a lesson needed, I think. And right now I have this achievement unlocked right now, and I can move forward. And I think that right now I can make games more in a like more I know the better way. Well, I stop looking for this word that I'm missing right now, but I know what I mean, right? This is more, I think, conscious, process right now for me.
Yeah, and it's important, as you said, like to have somebody who is keeping track of what's going on in this game, and if we start again, like each one of these topics we're like bring up, it's like 40 minutes to an hour, like long. As Shark is probably like can attest to that in terms of the conversations we've had about design. But there's always that line of listening to ideas, getting them down, but in the same vein, understanding what you can and can't do. The example you said earlier in terms of having like not only taking the resistance system, but then expanding to like different tiers of resistances and things like that. Like on one hand, that can sound like a very great idea, but on the other hand, if it's not something that can be easily implemented, it's going to take away time from more critical elements of your game. Then you kind of have to be that person who says, "We can't do this right now," even if it's something that everyone likes. If it basically clashes with the rest of your development, you can't necessarily throw everything away on an idea.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of people in game dev doesn't like the last third of the development cycle. We have this 1/3, the second third. This is the time when you can say, okay, we can do this later.
Yeah.
Right. We can do this later, but then you have this last 30% of this time, and there's this question. Okay, what do we cut? What we want to do, right? And sometimes this could be very beneficial for the game, and a great example of that is Into the Breach, when these guys made like a whole XCOM-ish type of this meta game, like in between missions, and they decided that it doesn't fit, right? We need to cut this out, and they cut like 50% of the game, and I think that they've made a good decision. I think that they've made the right decision, because right now we are focusing on what's best in the game, and we don't have this stuff that wasn't really needed there.
Yeah.
And we also had a lot of ideas, of Alder's Blood that we cut away, like these bosses. They didn't fit. They were just bad. We had this research that it was like sometimes there are also stuff that you will have to spend a lot of time to develop them, and people won't be really excited about them, because this is like given in the genre.
And don't forget, of course, about, as I'm sure everybody watching as well, where like the last 10 to 15% of your game, where the polish and the refinement comes into play as well. And like when it comes to game development, this is when things become solidified. As you were just saying, like, we're past that point where you can say, this is a great idea, let's add this in, or, this could be an amazing thing, let's change our game. It's basically, no, we can't do this anymore. Like, this game is 80% done. Like, we can't add anything more. Like, and it's tough for a lot of people, both in game dev and outside of it, to understand that at some point, even if something could be better for your game, you have to say no, or that game will never get finished. Or it may start getting that case of, let's add this, but now let's add this system, and all of a sudden this very clean, very polished idea becomes this jumbled mess of mechanics that nobody has any idea what's going on anymore.
Yeah, Sharky says that players players don't care how long it takes. Yeah, they shouldn't. To be completely fair, they shouldn't. They are the customers, right? They want to have a good product, and that's fair. And this is just talking about the insights of the development, and we as developers need to be aware of that and stick to the vision. Right now I can just tell this everybody like a mantra. Yeah, if you have an idea, if you have a vision. And I'm not talking like let's make a tactical game, but let's make a game that feels like that. You need to have a specific vision. Of course, there should be room for improvements, but let's make a strategy game that's not a vision, that's not even a game idea, right? This can be anything. This can be an Anno, or this can be a Total War, right? Completely different games. But sticking to this vision, this will save you a lot of time at the end of the project.
Yeah. Right, and as a final time check, we're about 2 hours 15 minutes in. I have a few final questions for you regarding the Kickstarter, and then I'll wrap up. But for the people watching us live right now, this will be officially last call for questions. And as we're going to be ending things before Morton falls asleep here. Or Michael, I'm sorry. It's getting
no, I fall asleep. You just got me working right now. This is a very good conversation, and I'm very glad that you allowed me to be here. It's really fun.
Oh yeah. All right. A few here are my final questions for you about the Kickstarter that I was just thinking about. The first one, let me pull this back down here. Okay, the first one is about the rewards that you have for the game. Again, for people who are watching, you have the obvious stuff, lower price on the game, early bird, and then you have stuff like, custom skins, your name in the game, stuff like that. Were there any rewards for the Kickstarter that you came up with that, on retrospect, you had to, just cut, like they were just too big of an idea to have as a goal? Or, I'm sorry, as a reward. We're not at the goals yet.
Yeah, we had to be very careful with them, Like, for example, you have stuff like that. Some of these rewards are limited to only few. Like, we have exclusive weapon, not this one. Let me take a look. Like you have a quest or an NPC. We had to sit down and discuss. Okay, how many of these can we really make? Right? Yeah. Because it all takes time. If you are to design an NPC with a backer, there will be an idea. We'll have to work this out with this backer, right? Because they may have an idea that will just won't fit, with the game, right? We need to be these lore masters, right, and make sure that it will be all in these frames of this game. And same with other stuff like hunter skins. Okay, how many hunter skins can we really make, right? This takes a lot of time for us because this is stop motion animation. So yeah, there are different ideas. Like, as you can see, we completely avoided physical goods. I know that people like merch, but this can be this could be the end of the campaign, because shipping costs.
Yeah, if you don't properly prepare for physical goods, it's going to kill you in terms of cost and logistics.
Yes, then this killed a lot of tabletop Kickstarters. They didn't really count it in how much the shipping costs can actually cost. And we didn't want to make the same mistake. You are here for the game, right? You want to have a video game, and all of this stuff, this just it's just trash. They will probably throw away when you move from one place to another or something like that. And it's fun and all, but this is not the goal of the campaign. This is not the goal of you as a backer, right? You want to have a game on Steam or on a GOG or a Switch, right? And not a mug, right? With a logo.
Let me see. And I guess keeping with that, my last question regarding the Kickstarter are the actual stretch goals themselves. So, for those of you watching this right now, you guys have 2 announced and a third mystery one. So the first
And there are more.
I'm sorry?
There are more.
Oh, okay. But the 2 you have announced right now, the first one is adding in a new enemy type. And then the second one is kind of expanding on like the persistent layer or the camp layer. In terms of deciding what you want the stretch goals to be and what to include in them, like what was the conversation that you had with the team about that?
I really liked how the team behind Hollow Knight built the support for the game later on, right? And this was based, and I started digging, right, how it went out. They also have a Kickstarter, and at least some of these expansion packs, because they're not like small additions, they're quite big DLCs basically, were stretch goals from their Kickstarter campaign. And I don't like the idea of paid DLC. I don't buy DLCs myself, so I don't want my players, right, our players to be forced to buy something that would improve on the game. And these stretch goals are a way for us to make this quicker. We want to make this anyway, right? But we are not sure if we'll be able. It's all comes down to the sales, right? How the game will sell, and maybe it won't sell enough for us to justify the time and resources to build this, even if you really want to, right? So this is like, bam, okay, it will be no matter what, and this will be for free. So there are some smaller ones like the enemy. Enemies are not that hard to do. So you only need 1,000, right? Beyond our initial goal to get to that. So the roster will be more varied, right? We have more of this stuff to take a look at and be aware of. And then we have some bigger stuff. So the next one is 17. So it's like 4 more from the first one, because it's it's bigger, right? It's bigger. There's this, as you said, increases the amount of stuff you can do in between missions. Some of these ideas are taken from the first Kickstarter. They are still valid, of course, in different form, but the ideas are pretty much the same. We have design for that. It's not that we have a vague idea of what we want to do. This is designed. It's in the game design document. It just waits, for us to start working on that. And we have more of these. We have more of these that we want to include. Some of the stuff that are focused more around the darkness and this dark side of things, and our hunters getting corrupted, things like that, right? We have some stuff like completely new areas in the game with their own enemies and different storylines, that could explain a little bit more about the world. Because I have a huge document with lore and all of that, but not everything got to the game. Right? There was no place to put this. There was this storyline that had to be written, and not everything could be squeezed there, right? So we have some stuff like that. Of course, it will include more weapons, different types of weapons in different types of status effects, more enemies, more terrain elements, things like that. But this will be like put into expansion packs, that we want to release for free.
And it's very tough, I'm sure, as you're aware of, in terms of deciding, what elements are going to be in the main game and what can be saved for DLC or expansions down the line. Because this has certainly been another big nail in the coffin for a lot of Kickstarters, who they'll have like 20 to 30 different stretch goals. And it's not just like simple stuff like we're going to add a new character. It's like we're going to add a brand new game system. We're going to add a brand new gameplay loop. We're just going to keep adding and adding and adding. And then all of a sudden, your game is now 5 to 10 times bigger than what you originally planned for it to be. And then the other side of things is you could have a game that the basic concept just sounds okay, but then that one stretch goal sounds like it would bring everything together. And then what happens if you don't get to it? And then everyone's disappointed.
Yeah, that's why we avoided this kind of stuff. Everything that we have here is not like, it's not super grand. It's something to give you more to do, but it's not something that should be in the base game. What should be in the base game is in the base game. It's not that we will add crafting as a stretch goal, right? This crafting is in the game right now. It's working, it's there, and will be on the launch. It's not that we really need this enemy, right? We could add this enemy to put this in some missions, so there will be more interesting, or we can make missions that just will, and this guy will only be in these missions, and that's how it will be with this expansions about this new terrain elements. We want to make an expansion about it's like a dried out cove, when there used to be a huge port, and the enemies that you see there will be available only there. You won't see them anywhere else. So it's like a like a completely taken out, cut off part of the game. It's like its own. It has its own story, its own storyline that you may, but that doesn't have to patch this to progress through the main game. Something on the side, and all of this stuff is like something on the side. Like you travel through the regions and you can scavenge food there, and in this expansion, the first one that we have here visible for the 70,000, you may fortify regions with something like hideouts. Okay, it will give you like passive income of these resources, but it's not something that, of course, it changes balance, but it's not something that breaks balance, right? Yeah. It's just a small addition, and that's how we want to build these updates.
All right.
Yeah, Sharky says that they are called stretch goals for no reason. Yeah, exactly. That's how they should be used. But I think it all comes down to like experience, right? And I think that's it. I think that's just experience.
All right. I think with that, I am just about out of questions, or at least those that we can answer in like a few minutes. I guess for you, Michael, anything else regarding the Kickstarter that we didn't touch on?
The game will be available on PC and Switch, no matter what. These are our main platforms. We've updated the campaign with a special graphics at the top of the campaign, so you won't have any misunderstandings with that. If we found this, we will be able to bring PS4 and Xbox One version sooner. We decided with publisher that we'll do this anyway, but the time frame for that is still kind of loose, and with this Kickstarter we'll be able to use this sooner. This game has a release window already. It's not that this will be done sometime, and we don't know when. There may be a delay because some of the stuff is outsourced. We don't have, like, for example, audio designer in the team. We need to outsource this kind of stuff, and they can make these delays. The game is pretty much ready right now, and just after the Kickstarter ends, probably in a week or maybe even not that long, the backers with the pledge of $30 or more will get this early access, right, to the game. So it's not that you have to wait I don't know how long. On Kickstarter you get a discount. Basically the game will be a little bit more expensive when it comes out. So if you want to get this cheaper by $5, then this is the right time to do this. What else? The game will be released on Steam on GOG and GOG. Okay, don't worry. I know what you know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows what we are talking about. No. Steam, GOG, Switch. Right? For me, the Switch version is very, very important. I really like playing on Switch, and so far it looks good. And we'll make sure that it will be nice and easy to play this with a controller, even on PC.
All right.
If you prefer to.
And Furok asked in chat, I think we may have answered this earlier, but to clarify, how many hours do you expect the campaign to take?
Campaign, probably something around 20 hours, but if you want to play through everything, it's 40 hours, if not more. Yeah, it grew. We were aiming for 20 hours for the whole experience, and we thought that we have this 20 hours, and we have to add more stuff because there are ideas about physical release, and we need to build this retail value to get this physical release, right? So it would be justifiable. But when we did some calculations, I think we already have 40 hours of playtime in this game.
All right. Well, I think with that, we can probably wrap things up. Again, this is a very great cast, Michael, and it definitely sounds like a great concept for a game. No RNG may actually work well for me in a tactical stealth game.
I hope so. I hope so that you will be, this much enthusiastic about this after this came out. I can only assure you that I will do everything that I can. That this will be a good game.
All right. So
we'll enjoy it.
I think with that, the final question I have for you before we wrap it up then is, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to say to any fans or people watching?
Yeah, I actually have. First of all, thank you for the support that you showed so far. It's really great. It builds the morale nicely. To see that these numbers are growing, that you are really liking what you see. Because I don't know that we've seen one negative comment on that. This is great. This is great. It wasn't so fun first time around, and right now everybody seems to like it. The art, the gameplay mechanics that we introduced. So thank you, and please spread the word. Please spread the word. We are only I don't know. Let me check. Something like 17%. To the initial goal. Yeah, 17%. Tell your friends. It's okay if you don't want to pledge. If you don't pledge, to Kickstarter, okay. I understand, but maybe someone else, maybe some of your friends will like this. Maybe these friends will show it to them friends, right? And this could work like that. So if you're okay with that, please share the news. It really means a lot to us at this point.
All right. Yeah, and definitely again, best of luck, and ideally by the time when this cast goes up, you guys will hit at least that first goal.
That would be nice.
All right. So
I wouldn't complain.
No. But I think with that, we have certainly kept everybody awake and energized, I think, over the course of this cast. So thank you for myself, for everybody who enjoying this, whether you're watching this live or recorded. Before I do my social media plug, for you, Michael, do you have any social media you would like to plug for Alder's Blood?
Yeah. I think our main channels like Facebook, Twitter. And should I put them somewhere in the chat or something like that?
Yeah, sure. And I know, I forget their name who came in earlier, Zarin, I think mentioned that you have a Discord as well.
Yeah, and I throw this here. So Facebook, if you like Facebook, if you like Twitter, here's the Twitter. I think these are the links that you can share. These are the links that will count to the social goals that we have, and we have a link to our Discord here. Okay. There are some updates that are for Discord exclusive. Usually they are before they go live on social media. You can catch us pretty much any day. I'm like available whole day there. So if you want to ask me a question, that would be probably the best place to do so. And if you want to chat, we can go to the voice channel. If I have time, then I can talk with you.
Yeah, Michael, none of the links went through on the YouTube. I'm not sure if you pasted it there or if YouTube may have blocked them.
Oh, I can see them, but maybe YouTube blocked them.
If you want to send them to me on the Discord side, I'll try and copy and paste them from here. They may like it because I'm the admin.
Okay, so
I know YouTube is getting very odd with some of this stuff these days.
Okay, so here's the Discord.
All right, let me put that here. Let's see if it will block me.
We'll see.
Okay, it went through. All right, so that is their Discord.
And these will be the links that you can share on your social media. And this is for Facebook, and this is for Twitter.
Okay. There we go. And I will try, for those of you watching this recorded right now, I'll include a link to that in the description down below if you want to get them that way. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. So I think other than that, as I said earlier, Michael, if you're free after you've relaxed from the Kickstarter, if you'd like to come back on and talk strategy design, we can certainly have another 2 to 3 hour long cast.
Why not? I really like to talk about games. So if you have time and want to talk with me, then just let me know.
All right. I guess it's my turn to do my plugging. So if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at GWBicer. We have a Discord channel, as I'm sure a few of you may shockingly be aware of. That's all linked down below, as well as our Patreon. Patreon can help keep things going, and I need to actually, speaking about social goals and whatnot, I need to do more on the Patreon, but that's a discussion for another time. For the people watching this live, I'll be back later tonight for our regular game streaming, and for everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games, and be sure to check out Alder's Blood on Kickstarter, and like I said, best of luck for you guys getting the rest of your funding.
Thanks everybody. Thank you for having me here. It was very fun.
All right. So with that said, have a great evening, everyone, and I will see you all later. But until then, take care.